Hi there. Well, today I'm going to try and put together another floral demonstration for you. I've had this one on my mind for at least a week or so because I'm going to just show you what it is that I'm going to have a go at today with this lovely vase of lilies in the background. So let me just take you over there and just show you a bit of a close-up of them so I can show you what it is that I've got in mind doing. Okay, so here they are. I actually purchased these lilies, exactly a week ago, but I've been waiting for them to open up. They were sort of on special. It was 2 bunches for $20, which is very, very good price because normally you get about 5 stems for $20. And I've got all of these, but they've taken a while to open up, and I guess that's the florist knew that, and that's why they put them out cheaper. But now I've got some wonderful blooms here, and so I'm going to see if I can just make a painting up. I'm not going to be doing it in a vase. I'm just thinking of doing this in a loose way, perhaps just capturing how they might be growing, but to get those lovely white blooms and those brown centers there to give it a bit of impact. So let's just see how we go. So I've cut short a couple of the stems so that I can pop them in a smaller vase to have on the table here so I can see them when I paint. Otherwise, that great big pot of them over there is going to just be too much, and I won't be able to fit them on the table and paint at the same time. I'm going to paint on a half sheet today, which means there may be some times where I can't get the whole painting in under the camera, so I'll have to just do a little bit of shifting. But I've decided I'm going to do it in portrait because then I can get a nice tall look to the lilies. I've also made a decision to use a high white paper. So I'd like to show you here the difference between the two. This is high white. They're both by Saunders Waterford. This is their standard paper, and this is the high white. And you can see with the two of them next to each other here that there is quite a bit of difference. If I'm painting a white subject, I will often reach for the high white paper because I think that I've already got that brilliance of the white there. Even though when you paint a white subject on the cream paper, you can still get it to look white because you've got other colour around it and it will bounce back and it will look white. This is just an added bonus. So I'm going to do it on this size piece of paper in the high white. It's 425 GSM, which is actually my preferred painting for my gallery work. And I use the 300 GSM when I'm doing more of studies or demos for class. But with high hopes that this painting may turn out, I will start off on my 425 GSM. So I have the flowers ready. I've had a little look at a composition. I don't always do a drawing for my floral work, but in this instance, because they're white flowers, I have to give some consideration as to where I'm going to leave white paper to make the blooms. So it's always better, I feel, then to have a little bit of drawing. Otherwise, it's very easy to have lost all the white paper. So I've thought about my composition a little bit. I'm really just using this nice little lot of flowers that I've got here, as opposed to looking at that great big vase of them over there. So I've got some buds that are not open. I've got something that has started to open and something halfway and something really open. I just need to rearrange them to match my drawing now, but anyway, there we go. It's something like that. Now the other option here, of course, is to use masking fluid or not to use masking fluid. When I look at the areas that I've got to really be mindful of wanting to have some paper left white, might be these stamen things in the middle here. But I think I'm going to live dangerously and don't use the masking fluid. Let me think about that, or will I put a little bit on? Shall I put a bit on so you can see how I go about applying that? That might be a good idea. So I've got my masking fluid out, and I'm going to pour a little bit into a cup so that I can put the lid back on and not spill the whole lot. This is Winsor & Newton masking fluid. It dries yellow, so you can see it when it's on there. I've got a reasonably fine brush. It's an older brush. It was a good brush at one stage, but it's worn out. So I'm using that now to do the masking. And I've got a cover over my paints here in case I spill that as well. And what I do is I soap up the brush like so. Just make sure there's a little bit of soap in the hairs. Then you can dip that into the masking fluid, and then the masking fluid comes off very easily afterwards, which is a great thing. So into the masking fluid, and just have a look at my image now and say, well, I really would love it if after I've been painting, I could take it off and I've got something really clean here. Trouble is with masking fluid, you've got to pay a lot of attention to putting it down neatly, because when you take it off, if you've been a bit wild with it, you've got some funny old shapes. And I generally don't do a very good job of it. Now, 6 of these on here, but I probably won't put them all out, but it'll give me the option to at least have kept something a little bit clean in the center there. And I'll do the same on this one down here, especially this big main bit here that's coming round. I might just change the shape of that a little bit from my drawing, like so. A few other fine lines. So you could do this without the masking fluid and just paint carefully. When you paint a little bit loose, you tend to be a little bit splashy, and you don't want to be watching every little piece of your paper, worrying if you're making a dirty mark where you're supposed to have kept it clean. So in some respects, it is a good idea to have a little bit of this. I'll get a couple that have just gone out into here, into the background a little bit. I can see already by the way I've put this down, I've done a shocking job. Now, if it's really, really bad, you can just, 5, 6, you can just wait for it to dry and rub it off and start again. You could splatter a bit into the background if you wanted, but I'm just going to do that much, which is more than probably what I thought I was going to do. So we'll leave it at that. And we're going to just let that dry for a couple of minutes. Because you can't paint over it, and it can be time to clean the brush up. So while that masking fluid is drying, that gives me a little bit of time here now to think about what colours I'm going to use for this. And you know, when you look at the actual lilies, there's not a lot of colour in there. It's basically a green and white painting. So I've got to find ways at least of making it look a little bit interesting. So first of all, I've got to think a bit about what I'm going to do to make my greens. I just need to check what colour this green is here actually. I don't think it's that one. I think it might be the Perylene green that I had out before. So I might have to go looking for that because there's not enough out. So I've got a dark green here. Of course you can make your greens, and I don't use tube green, but I do use it and mix it with other colours. So here I am putting it down with Quinacridone Gold. So I get several shades of a nice green here, sometimes leaning towards the yellow, sometimes the really dark, and then of course the colours in between. So that's quite nice. I like that. So that could well be enough to do the greenery. When I look at the actual flowers here, so I'll try and take one off here so you can see what it is I'm talking about here. When I look at the flowers, I'm going to want something for these dark stamen things. I'm not very good with my terms, obviously, but anyway, let's see. I'm thinking burnt sienna will do that quite nicely for me, and I can tone that up. Doesn't have to be totally brown. I can even put a bit of this dark green in there, which will darken the brown up as well. Can you see that? I've got a light brown and I've got a dark brown. So far I've got this colour here, which I'm going to just check, but I think it is Perylene green. I'm going to find the tube for that in a moment. I think it's in my bag that I take to classes. And I have got burnt sienna. And the Quinacridone gold. So far I've got 3 colours. So I'm definitely going to be able to get my background, my stamens out of there. And when I look at the actual lily itself, there's lots of green in that white of the lily. So I could definitely get my shadowy colour from here. But to me, that probably still maybe a little bit boring. So I'm just going to have to think here that it's going to need another colour. And I think I will probably get some permanent rose, because permanent rose and burnt sienna seem to appear in every single one of my paintings. So it makes me so predictable. Right, so here's the green and here's the pink with it. And I know I can get a nice shadowy colour out of that, combined with doing all these other combinations. So I think this will work quite well for me. So I'm just going to switch off here for a minute, go and find this tube and find out exactly what that green is. So I found my tube of green paint, and it actually is Perylene green. It's a Daniel Smith colour, a dark green, but as I say, it does mix up to some rather nice lighter greens, and you can make it even bluer, that's a word, by putting a little bit of a phthalo blue colour in it. I quite like the idea of that as well. Let me just have a little look here. So here's the green, and I think it's always best to do this testing before you start a painting, because you make all these decisions, and when you get going on the painting process, it's far quicker and you're more confident with what you're doing if you've already done these colour choices. I like that too. So let me put an extra colour in on here. And these, you can just get creative and don't worry about, oh, what will I use next? What will it be? My phthalo blue colour here is actually Winsor blue, green shade, but phthalo blue will do it, or like a turquoise. This is Winsor & Newton Permanent Rose. This is Winsor & Newton Quin Gold. This is Winsor & Newton Burnt Sienna. And this is Daniel Smith Perylene Green. So I'm all ready to go. I have my composition done, my masking fluid. If you touch it and it doesn't come off your hands, it's dry and ready to go. It will still feel tacky because it's a rubbery type of feel. I've got my colour choices done, so now really I'm all ready to get going with the painting. Now this may well take longer than you want to sit and watch. This is a half sheet piece of paper, so you know, as you can see, it's quite a big painting here. So I may well just put some of it onto speed painting, no talking, get it done to shorten the video. And then I'll speak to you if there's something I need to say that, you know, would be interesting for you to hear. But if it's only a case of watching painting, then as I say, we might just do it with no sound. The videos are far quicker to edit when there's not all of that sound thing to do as well. But anyway, let's see how we go. So I'll just get myself ready here and I'm going to get into this painting. I've put a few brushes out ready. I tend to want to use a variety of brushes because it gives different sorts of brush strokes, but I like to pick the biggest brush to do the job. So that means getting a big brush if you want to do the washes in the background, getting smaller brushes for the details, but don't get stuck using one brush because then your marks can all look the same. So variety, I think, is a good way to go here. Now, you could wet the paper first with this type of painting, or you could go on dry and add the water as you go. I'm probably going to do a bit of a combination of both. The good thing about painting, well, for me, painting in watercolour is that there are so many choices and different approaches that you can do, and you don't have to get stuck in the same one every time. So some days I might paint on dry paper and sometimes I will do it wet into wet. But today I think I'm just going to feel my way around this, which might mean doing a bit of both. I'm actually going to paint a lot of my background first and leave the flowers for after, because really they may not need quite as much work as the background, but putting the background in first will help me find my way with those flowers. So I possibly might just spritz a little bit of water in places, not on the white flowers. So keeping them dry. If I keep them dry, hopefully the paint won't go in there. Then perhaps with a big brush. It's always nervous doing these first marks. I don't care how many paintings you do. The first ones that you do are nervy. They are, because you see this beautiful piece of paper here and it's not like I'm copying a photograph here. I'm actually making something up. And I've got to make a lot of decisions, sometimes pretty quickly. So it's a case of just going for it. So I'm putting down here, I'm going carefully around. I've got to look up every now and then to just make sure that my film is still working, because it's quite easy to get to the end of making a painting only to find that the video switched off. And I don't want that to happen. But here I am putting down that dark green mixed with some gold, and the way it's coming off the brush is sometimes more green has come off, sometimes it's the yellow, you know, the gold, and can't see my drawing there. And find my way around the edges of this bloom here, and then bleed this paint away. I didn't do my drawing very dark, so I'm having to just concentrate a little bit going around here to make sure I don't go over the petals that I want to leave white. So that's quite a bit of paint down. I'm not absolutely sure where I'm going with this paint, so I will just add water. If you add water, it just gives you a little bit of time to make your decisions a little bit later, because you're taking away any hard edges from it, and you can then rethink. So it buys you time. I really wouldn't mind putting a little bit of blue in this as well. So I'll get the blue ready. There's no formula for this. This is just finding colour that's playing together that you like, and thinking, can you work with that? So you can see the paint going over the masking fluid there. It's resisting the paint, so I should end up with, from what I can see there, actually some very big fat lines, but anyway, I might be able to fix them up when I take the masking fluid off. So here I'm just putting in a bit of this blue for a bit of variety as well. I won't be painting every leaf on this. I want the feeling of all these leaves, of that wonderful vase of flowers, but I will only make some into real leaves. So I just keep working my way around here. I've left this a little bit long at the top here, so I'd be interested to see if I can get rid of this hard edge of the paint there. What happens is when you're working on a bigger sheet of paper, you've sort of got to move a bit quickly, but of course I'm still making things up, so I don't want to rush so much that I put something down that I don't like. Maybe I'll keep it a little bit bluer up the top, as if it's gone up into the sky, and thicker greenery down the bottom. So just working with the paint that I've put down here. There's a hard line around the top of this petal here. So if I add some more paint to it now that there's water here on that hard line, it will be able to soften. Bit of a water mark happening there. Just try and see if I can soften that. I'm not that worried about watermarks, especially in my floral work. They don't worry me that much. I've got a lovely hard looking first brush mark I've put down here. He will require a little bit more work. And sometimes with these, you can just go in with a smaller brush and darker paint and help with those. So I'll just quickly get this maybe backgroundy bit going here. Bit more water. There's a bit of yellow up in here. I almost want to forget that the video is on so that I can think about what these colours are doing and do I like them together. This will go very bright up here with that gold, I feel. Yeah, so painting, talking and filming all at the same time, bit of a challenge, but we'll see how we go. If it doesn't turn out, like we always say, it's a piece of paper and a few hours of high concentration, high hopes, but hopefully some fun. That's the idea. So I keep looking up to see if my video is still filming, because you can't repeat any of this. If the filming goes off, I can't say, let's backtrack and just do that bit again. The painting's already evolved and we can only pick it up from that same point. I'm just going carefully. When I don't talk, it's because I'm really going carefully around a shape that I don't want to lose. So this is a fairly big brush I'm using. It's a number 12 mop. The whole time I can keep working with the bigger brush. I like it because the job gets done quicker. It's not as fussy. But there will come a time where it's too big to use. Then I will go into the smaller brush, but not until then. Hopefully you can see what's happening here. It's really hard when this is a half sheet, as I say, to get it totally in on the camera, but I'm doing my best. So just filling in here. I think it's important for you to probably see more of me painting the background than it is to paint the flowers, because I'm told so many times by people that come to my classes that the thing that they struggle with is the background. Well, it's because there's nothing that you're following here. You're making this up, and you've just got to trust your feeling about what's happening. And if you can get a background that you like, then it gives you a lot of confidence to carry on with the subject. But if you don't get a background that you like, well, sometimes it's better just to start again, so that you can feel good about your painting. So come down in here. Still trying to work around those white shapes, but I hope you can see that it's just little, whilst it's loose painting, it's not so fast and furious that it's not considered. You know, you may think that if you're painting loose, that means that you can just do it with gay abandon, but you still got to think about what you're doing and what is it going to lead to next? What is it that I've got? What is it that I'm giving myself to build upon when this bit's dry? So, you know, you want it to be something useful that's going to work for you, not something that's going to make the next step really tricky. So I'm just coming around a bud up here that I left. This was a bud that was not open. This one here is a little more open. So I've got two up there, one here. This is all greenery and then two big flowers. So far so good. And I'll just keep moving around here. Sometimes dipping into the blue, sometimes into the green, sometimes into the gold, but really just those three colours. I haven't put any pink in the background. Not sure what I'm going to do with the pink, but I'll worry about that. I'll worry about that later. At the moment, I'm enjoying what this blue, green and gold is giving me. So it's easy to sort of carry on with it. Now I've got some little places, get rid of that hard mark up there. I've got some little places here where some little white spaces have been left. If they're a funny shape, I might get rid of them. But if there's something that I think I can live with, they help give a little bit of light into the painting. I hope I'm going around this one properly. I've lost my drawing there a little bit. I've got a big puddle of paint here, which I think I might just, there's a bit too much water here for me to see what's going on. I'll just soak that up with the corner of a tissue. That blob up there probably no doubt have to become a leaf of some sort. So I tend to not want to panic, and then I do panic. So carry on moving around. I'm not sure what I'm going to do right the way down the bottom here. Let's see. I might just go a little bit carefully along these stems here. Of course, they could always become stems over the top, so I don't actually have to leave them entirely. The main thing is to leave the blooms. So that's a flower there. And always just trying to make the green varied. Just so that, you know, what is basically a green painting with some white flowers can still have a lot of variety. So far, so good. Now, where are we going with this flower over here? So I'll just give this a little bit of a think here. I might make a smaller brush when I get into there. If I've got blue paint on one side of something, I like to think that it's going to come down on the other side. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but I need it to look like a continuity behind something. Stem on that's a bit fat, but we can hone in on it later with a smaller brush. I like this over here. I'm thinking maybe keeping it very loose down the bottom to see what happens. I've even lost the shape of, because my little vase of flowers has moved around a lot. I can't tell what's supposed to be what, so I'll have to just remake some up as I get going. So you can see sometimes you can just twist your brush around instead of using strokes. You can twist the brush around and you get, the paint will release off with a different pressure depending how you're holding it and how you're pressing down, and you get something a bit different, which is what you want. We're not after same old, same old. Now this here is just greenery, so I guess I could just come over the top of this and then paint negatively to bring those out. Don't have to be mindful of that. I really only have to be mindful of anything that's got to be a bloom. Everything else doesn't matter. Plenty of water down here, because if I haven't made up my mind how I'm finishing this, the whole time that there's water here, I've got time to be able to make up my mind after. So I'm going to go in here carefully now around here and get some background in. And I really don't know here. So I'm just going to add lots of water and let the paint find its own place to stop. And I can put some more over when it's dry, if I want to. It's just options. All of it is options. But coming in around this flower, I'm going to just maybe even just stop the video just for a second while I have a closer look. Okay, so I think I found my petals on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is all greenery around here. So I'm just going to swap to a smaller brush and just find my way, hopefully not putting my arm in anything here, around my flowers up here. I've got a really dry brush mark here, but hopefully I can soften that out. Once I've found my way around the flowers, you know, I look at the background and it's magically done half the painting, I think. I'm going to leave that stem up there to be able to do that a different colour. So I'm going to paint around it. Sometimes I paint the stem and then bring out either side of it. But sometimes I like to paint the stem positively. More gold. Let's get that in over here. So the moment you use a brush that's too small, you know, the paint doesn't move around. And you're just scrubbing away at the paper, you know, to get a lot of paint down. So when you feel that happening, I just think it's best to just pick up a bigger brush. So once you've gone in where you've got to go really carefully around something like this little part in here, the moment I don't have to be quite so careful, swap your brushes back over. I think that's a good way to go, and then you don't have all these little tiny little marks all over the place that look like loads of millions of little strokes that you've got to then do something with. So that's a stem there, which I'm going to keep there. Then I'm going to come around that shape there of a petal that's facing the other way. It's rolled over to the back. Maybe not very well with that drawing there, but we'll fix that up after. Just trying to get my background to a finish here for the first wash, so that I've got something now to play with to develop it into the painting. When you paint and you're actually making something up as you go, it's very hard sometimes for people to be watching it and even think where you're going with it. What is it that you're doing? Because a lot of it is just intuitive, and there's no actual place that I can show you, well, this is where I'm going here, what am I doing? Because sometimes you're just making stuff up as you go. I find that even with my demos in class. It's all right if you're painting exactly from a photograph, but when you're not, you're asking people to see what is in your head. I don't quite like what I've done down there. I'm going to elongate that bit of pencil drawing a little bit like that. So there's always time to fix up something you don't like with your drawing when you're putting the paint down. Yeah, so as I say, trying to see what's in my head. Sometimes I can't even see what's in my head because I'm just painting and trying to build it up by one mark, saying, oh, I like that, give me some more of that. But until you put them down, you don't know where the next one's going to go, because you know you haven't enjoyed the last one. Basically, that's sort of how I feel about when I'm doing this type of work. Okay, so what have I got? I've still got two big blooms. I'm trying to think what that great big leaf there is. I got a bit carried away with the shape of that one, but anyway, I've got a big flower there. I've got another flower there. Bit of an empty space up in the middle here, so that may well have to have some negative painting in there to turn it into something a bit better, rather than just a big empty space. But I just don't know what I want to do down here. So because I don't know what I want to do, I do nothing. Don't fill it all in. Where's my spray bottle gone? Don't fill it all in when you don't know exactly what it is that you want to do. To use that one. So I just add a little bit of water there, just so that maybe some of that paint won't dry to a completely hard edge. What have I got now? I'll just reassess this a minute. I really need a bit of dark paint in there. I just want to rethink where this is going here, that shape there. So I'm going to do that with a small brush. I'm trying to look at, I've got the flower here in front of me here. I know you can't see it, but I just want to see where this could be dark in here and still be able to make the petal trying to talk and think at the same time here. Make the petal be okay. Maybe something like that. Maybe I'll just do that for a minute. So I've got all the way round, other than right down this bottom right hand corner. This bottom right hand corner which is left really white, but I just might even only do splashes down there afterwards. I don't have to make that decision right now. I think it's time to leave it alone and let it dry. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let the whole background dry now, reassess what I've got, and then start painting the flowers. Well, I think the background's dry now, so I'm going to be able to start on these blooms. I'm going to think carefully about my colours for the shadows on the white flowers and make sure that I make some nice decisions to keep them clean, so a good shadow colour, not adding too much, otherwise you would turn white flowers into looking like grey or dirty flowers. So there's my next part to show you how I might go about modelling a white flower and putting some colour on it. So I'm quite happy with how this background's dried. I still don't know what I'm going to do with this bottom part down here, but I don't have to make all of these decisions right now. I've got a few funny marks here. I'm going to fix those up when I do a little bit more on the background, but I'm going to start with the flower. Now, when I do the flowers, I seem to settle into them. So sometimes the first one that I do, I'm not totally happy with and possibly overwork it. So maybe I'll actually start with a flower that's more simple and just get back into it. I've edited the first half of this video and that has taken me a couple of hours. So I've already lost my focus on the work. So by doing the small bloom first, I can find my way back in. So going back for the colours that I'd already worked on before with these colour choices here, that's what I'm going to continue with. So I've given my palette a clean up. I've changed my water because now I'm going to be working on the flowers. I do want things to stay clean. So I put a little bit more of the green out because I'm still going to need that. I've got my little bit of scrap paper here. So I might just with this small brush, just again, refresh myself with what I'm going to be doing with my colours. Just to find my way back in. If I do it on this little bit of paper and I've lost my way, all I've got is a little swatch here and not committed to the painting. Now, it'd be quite easy to paint this with more colours. You don't have to do it with a limited palette of, what have we got there, 5 colours, especially if you want to get a little bit more, here's that little bit that I broke off, which is now already looking very sad, but especially if you want to get more of this sort of lighter green colour. This is mixing the dark Perylene with the Quinacridone gold here. But if I took the blue and perhaps pop the gold with that, I'll just have a little look and see what I get with that. And I'm going to get a lighter green. So that would probably work quite well for my stems. But as far as my shadowy bits in here, these lilies have got a little bit of a green tinge going throughout them. They're definitely green on the underside of the petals. So we probably don't really need to dip into too many more colours. But I'm going to start with a small bud so I can find my way. So I'll just pop my colours over here so that I can see what it is I've got. And let's just see how we go. So a bigger brush is good, but it's probably, that big mop is too much for this. I've got a small number 8 sable here, which is really good for putting some water on and doing a little bit of a loose wash. So if I find a bud here, I'm going to still do it wet into wet. So I'm putting some water down, wetting the white shape. It's a little bit fuzzy around the edges because of how the background wash went down. But as I say, I can fix that up if I need to when I do a little bit more work in the background. So whilst I've got that one wet, I think I'll just do another one here. It's a little bit of a weird shape, that one, but never mind. Hopefully it will still look all right. So there we are. I've put water down, so I'll find that colour. And they range, if I can bring one of these down to show you, possibly not. Look, they range from light down here and darker stripes throughout. So I'm going to get some of the blue, touch it with a little bit of the gold. And as I say, I could go looking for another yellow to do this. Or I could just stick with this. Let me have a little think about that for a minute. So if I actually did go more for a cool yellow instead of that gold. So just because you've worked your colour swatches out and they're working all along for you and you get to a little bit that doesn't mean to say, oh, you've set this rule and you can't change your mind. Of course you can change your mind. Yeah, I'm going to start using a little bit of that lemon yellow. So I'll just put that on my colour swatch here. This is Winsor & Newton lemon yellow. So that will give me that. So let's just find my way with these ones at the back so that I'll be better prepared when I get into one of the actual blooms. And I can use some of the dark as well. So this way I can have the light green, some dark green. And when you see the actual marks on these buds that haven't opened up, the lines on them. Let me just see if I can bring this down and show you what I mean. I'm tipping everything over. Let's have a look. When you can see the lines on these, this sort of thing here, that's going to be easier to do on dry paper. So another step, not to have to do the whole lot all in one go. But I'll bring this colour down here on the stem for the minute. Just got a little bit lost up there. And I've already wet this one, so I'll drop that same sort of lightish colour into there. And where the background has gone round, as I said, and it's not left a very neat shape, this is all can be fixed up when these are dry. So there's the little bit of colour that I want on the buds. Now, we know that pigment dries about 25% lighter. Well, when you've already wet the area that you're going to put the paint down, it's going to dry lighter again. So when you look at it on here and you think, oh, that's just what I wanted it to look like, you need to actually make it a little bit darker, because when it dries, it will disappoint you because it'll be too light. So I'll just drop a wee bit more colour in, knowing that that's going to dry lighter. So there's two buds. So perhaps I'll find my way here. This particular one that I drew this morning, and it's now getting close to the middle of the afternoon. This on my little bunch here, it's already opened up. It doesn't even look like the same flower. So when they start opening up, they are white, more white. So it only needs a hint of green on it, and probably really just some fine lines. So I've gone on dry on this one here. Just on dry. A little bit more colour. When you paint on dry, of course there is a lot more control. It is not going to dry quite as light as if it had all the water on as well, because you're not diluting the paint again. I'm trying to look over to my main bunch over here and see if I can see one of these buds that's not quite as open, but I can't, so I'll have to just go with this. And I'll start bringing that stem down. So there's a start on the flowers. I'm back into the painting now, getting a little bit of a feel for it, so it's not going to be straight in here, not knowing what I'm going to do. So I'm going to have a go at this one up here now and just have a look and see if I can rearrange my flower arrangement here to give me, but everything has changed. My studio is so light, it's really letting these flowers really open up. So with these, a stem coming out there, I'm just looking there, the greenest in the middle here. Nice bit of green in, whoa, not that much blue, Lorraine. So let's bring some over here. And put this round. Knowing I've got that masking fluid there is my little bit of safety here. Let's see if I can just turn my flower around just to see what it is that they start doing when they come down. So I might just wet down here and let that bit of green paint track into these other areas. I'll share its little bit of paint around, make it a wee bit more yellow, drop a bit of that in. And just find my way slowly. And now I'll think about some shadow colour. So I talked about using the pink and the green for the shadow colour. So if I find my permanent rose and I get my green with it. Whoops, doesn't take much to get things to go over the edge. I really don't want it too dark. I don't want it too red. I don't want it too green. And something about like that. So I've wet this here now, letting those tracks run down there. So I've just got to be a little bit mindful of not letting the shadow colour all merge and run in together. So maybe I'll leave that one and I'll have a go down here with this one for the shadow. And then I may well just have to stop talking and paint so that I can concentrate on trying to get some modelling here. So I'll try something like that and just get a wee bit of this, hopefully not too strong. Trusting that I know this is going to dry lighter, because you saw me wet the shape. And it could still have probably a little bit of green in it as well. So I'm going to have to rearrange my flower arrangement so I can actually see some petals on the turn into the, get the shadow side and a light side, because at the moment the flowers have all been turned round something quite different to my drawing. So finding that same colour, just a little bit down here. A little bit of colour there, not much, but some. And I think it's far better to go slowly at this than end up with too much paint. You can always add more. It's far easier to add it than it is to take it off. I'll just find my way around little bits like this. So I think what I'm going to do now is stop talking, try and bring some colour in onto these flowers, and you can watch me do that. Then I'll probably have to let some dry, and I can then paint the centres, and I can talk to you whilst I'm doing that. been working at this painting for quite a while now, and I feel like I've put enough colour down, even into the lilies, still meaning to keep them white, but putting a little bit of shadow colour in there, building up a little bit in the background. I think it's time to dry it off and reassess. Then I'd like to be able to take the masking fluid off and show you how I might just model a wee bit more in there when there's no masking fluid on there. Add those little brown parts to the end of the stain and things here, or whatever they are, and just decide if I'm doing a little bit down here. Might just well be a little bit of splatter, and I think then I'm going to be done. Okay, so I'm going to take the masking fluid off and just do a wee bit of paint into here, and then I think I'm just about done. So I may not have even needed the masking fluid in some of those places, but it means that I have been able to put a little bit of colour around here and still kept the white of the paper underneath, so that could be helpful. These big thick ones that I talked about at the beginning, where I've come out into the dark background, but they're too thick. I put the masking fluid down too thick. Then I will just now creep in with a bit of dark paint here, background colour paint, and just see if I can just thin these up a little by just cutting in, just to get them a little bit thinner. Trick here is not to lose them all together, which is easily done, but just take your time. And I take my time like this and hopefully don't lose them. So I'm reasonably happy with the loose background. The modelling of the flowers, really tricky with white, but I think I've put enough colour on there so that it's just not left the white of the paper. Got a couple of shapes here that I wasn't totally happy with, but that comes down to not having done a very good drawing. Also, with the 3 or 4 hours that have passed, these flowers in the vase have changed shape on me, and so in the end I was actually really making things up. So I'm just going to dry that little bit there. Now let's just see what we can do with those. I may have to just put a little shadow side on one of them. The little bit that's in the middle here, it's a little bit more yellow. So I'm just going to drop a wee bit of yellow in there, a bit of yellow in there, and add a wee bit of the gold to it as well. So I've put the cool yellow down, but now I'm going to just put a little bit of warm yellow in it as well. So that's the main one, and looking at it, it might come down marginally green, not very much, but if I put a little bit down like that, it will at least help show it against the white of the lily at the background. The white flower that's it's sitting against. And then these others are really quite white from what I can see. So first of all, I'll put the brown on them and see if that makes sense and that you can see them. If it doesn't, then I'll have to put a little bit of shadow colour on there. So we talked about using the burnt sienna for this. So get the burnt sienna, have a look at, where's my trusty little model here? This poor old thing didn't like being out of water, that's for sure. And just put a couple of marks down. It's probably enough to show where they are. Same over this one. Should hopefully be able to get them on the over the background colour there. I can darken them up a wincy bit. I'm mixing the green in with it and with the burnt sienna. And just get a wee bit of a mix, a little bit of now, what's left? I could have neatened up round here. Perhaps I'll have a quick go at doing that. Just so that they don't perhaps look quite as wobbly. Let's see if I can possibly do this. I'm getting myself into a bit of a mess. Or making them look outlined. That's the main thing, is you don't make things look just outlined. So it's a matter of putting the paint down and quickly getting it to come away with a damp brush. Okay. So I've got a very, very white piece of paper down the bottom here. I feel it needs something. I'm not sure what that's going to be, so I'm just going to dry the rest of the painting off. And I'll put the video together, and by the time you maybe see the painting at the end of the video, I'll have decorated a little bit down here. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I've taken a bunch of, a big bunch of lilies. Actually a very, very nice bunch of lilies, which I'm going to get a few more days out of, I hope. And just taken a couple of stems of them out, composed with a wee bit of drawing on there, but showed you how to put in a loose background to show the flowers coming out from that background. Quite a free-flowing, organic type of painting that you can have some fun with. So once again, thanks for watching. Till next time, bye.